But on the politics of it, we will discuss the economics of it as well. But from the political perspective, Madhavan Narayanan is joining us, our senior journalist who joins us often on India Tonight. Mr. Narayanan, always good to have you on the show. Tell us if you think this
Thank you.
move betrays BJP's nervousness ahead of state elections that take place in Haryana, Maharashtra, and of course Jammu and Kashmir. Is it simply a move to win back government employees, you think? Or is it something that they are hoping is going to nullify the Congress's line of attack?
There are many ways of looking at this, Vikram, but let me explain this in a certain sequence so that you will understand. There was an urgent pressure on the BJP government as well as its own desire to keep fiscal deficit under check. Therefore, and it also wants to keep government costs low. But what it realized was that it is a very political thing. And if you see the sequence of events from Karnataka Assembly elections, the BJP lost. And in spite of having done well having the Ram Mandir and other emotive issues, it had a pretty tough scene in Rajasthan, which had a big deal about the old pension scheme. They were actually reintroducing it and making it a big issue. And then there was the Agniveer scheme for army, which again has been much criticized. Essentially, there are two things that the BJP has realized. One is that economic issues concerning government jobs are a major issue for not only voters but also government employees who are actually the deliverers of public services for the average citizen. So it is like government employees are like the soldiers if Mr. Narendra Modi is the general. So you need some people who are incentivized and motivated to deliver. And particularly in India, if you see, government jobs are seen as not as public service opportunities but as lifelong secure jobs with some perks, transferability, and all. One British researcher called it the aristocracy of clerks. So this is what I call the modern Jagirdari, whether you like it or not. But the other way of looking at it is that the fiscal pressures have eased on the government. GST collections are
Yes.
looking good. In fact, if you look at it, disinvestment is no longer on the table.
Yes, it
Nobody
isn't.
is really cribbing. It's a matter of self-discipline for the government to control the fiscal deficit. Nobody from the world is pressuring India the
Yes.
way they
But
used
they're
to.
following that path of fiscal prudence and
So they are following it, but the
yes.
key point to remember that this is where I'm coming to some of the political aspects.
But let me
I've
ask you,
explained.
Mr. Madhavan, the Congress seeing this as a victory of its policies, do you think that is going to be something they will want to push through? Is the party too focused on its own needs, or is it too difficult for them to think about the larger economic implications for a political party that has been out of power for more than 10 years?
Yeah, well, the Congress wanted to steal the thunder or
Yes,
also put pressure on the government. The Congress has succeeded as far as the reforming or pressuring the government to do this way or that is concerned. The Congress is justified in taking credit, but actually the benefits still politically, if at all, may go to the BJP because the BJP has shown over the past 3 months under the Modi 3.0 that they are not afraid of taking anything back. They are not afraid of doing anything on the economic side to keep the popular mandate. Most important of all, let me quote Steve Jobs, who said, "No, never hesitate to steal a good idea." The BJP government is following that. And if you look at the NPS versus OPS scheme of things, you'll find that they also have some cosmetic appeal. For
yes,
instance, the assured minimum pension under the unified pension scheme is more than the old pension scheme. So they
correct.
have some bragging rights which are politically
So you think that the
useful
Congress
in
could
places
use
like
some of those
Haryana and
bragging rights?
Maharashtra,
It
which are
could come to their
competitive.
benefit. I want to bring in founder and economist of Nikore Associates to get an economic perspective to this entire debate. Mitali, good to have you on the show as well. I want to ask you if this UPS, the Unified Pension Scheme, it has a guarantee of minimum 10,000 rupees per month as pension. Do you think this is a regressive step when you look at it from an economic magnifying lens? Is this like taking from the future generations to fund today's economic activity? Or do you think we are well funded and we are okay with this?
So I think, Vikram, very honestly, when we think about it, we are a growing economy. So we do expect our GDP to show, a growth of 7 to 8% over the next decade. If you look at different projections from the IMF, World Bank, ADB, all of the institutions, even the government's own projections are in a 8% range for GDP. This gives us some amount of fiscal comfort. So definitely from that point of view, I see the government's calculations. But at the same time, the question that we have to ask ourselves is exactly what was the reason for doing something like this when we are targeting to have a smaller government? And is this move in line with having a smaller government? And why I'm saying smaller government is because at the end of the day, with digitization, right, and with bringing in more e-governance and digital public service delivery, digital public infrastructure, DPI, which has become the mainstay of providing public services to the needy, to those who require the services, even basic public services like administrative services. We are using more and more technology, right? So therefore the move of the government should be that, okay, I want to hire certain people in governance who are responsible for policy decision making. These people should be well funded and paid and incentivized to come and work in the public sector, when I also have a growing private sector which is taking a large amount of my skill base away. And therefore I feel that this decision is in line with that strategy, that
Right.
we should incentivize good people to work in the government but have a smaller government.
Then why do you think a certain section of employees are still not happy with the UPS, the Unified Pension Scheme? Because even as the government is increasing its contribution, the question is if this decision could have a cascading effect on economic reforms, on privatization, because that's what you're indicating.
Yeah, so I do think that the reason why certain people have reservations is because the writing is on the wall that when you are increasing your pension bill by this amount, it also means, I mean, the implications are that you will reduce the number of people you hire over time. It may not be today, but over the years, we're saying maybe we will not expand the size of the government that much, and that will make the pension bill more affordable. The second thing is that we've seen the experience in the railways sector. When we look at the size of the Indian railway service, it's one of the largest, and it has one of the most, generous pension packages out of all the different services. At one point, it used to be different, and the experience with the, pension bill of the railways and how it has impacted the working capital requirements of the railways,
Yeah.
the profitability of the railways, makes people, afraid of, what will happen to the debt situation with this pension bill.
Yes, indeed. Also, I wanted to ask Mr. Narayanan, do you think that this unified pension scheme is going to bring an end to the debate over the old pension scheme? Or do you think this is going to fuel politics around the old pension scheme again?
I think the main purpose of the new scheme, the unified pension scheme, is to blunt political criticism on this, and there will be only nitpicking possible on this because there is a substantial repackaging which I think is politically going to be, not controversial enough for Congress. You can't flog a dead horse. To that extent, it is there. But let me add one thing to what Mitali Nikore said. It's just that on a per capita basis in a nation of 140 crore people, government employees are not that many. The real question is how do you get them to actually deliver public services on a large scale, and how much of this will be related to affirmative action or political appeasement of certain communities. And therefore, we have to change the perception of government jobs as long-term, secure, rent-seeking jobs and shift it towards governance and public services. If this pension scheme is able to convert some of the motivation into real ground level delivery, it'll be less of consumption, more of investment. We have to abandon this 1950s style of thinking that revenue expenditure is this capital. It's
Indeed. Mitali?
all about what
Yes.
is the service
Yes.
and asset you're creation.
Yes.
Even if it is human assets, even if it is highly educated people, motivated people are as good as capital expenditure.
Yeah, valid point.
I mean, we have to have shed this 1950s thinking.
Yes.
But having said that, how is the government going to put pressure or use this pension as a motivation
Yeah.
to deliver public services? Because how long can you keep on
Yes,
playing
those kind of
identity politics?
incentives. Yes, indeed, absolutely. Mitali, you agree with that point. You're nodding vigorously. Also, recently,
Yes.
Mitali, the finance minister advised tax officials not to harass taxpayers. The bureaucracy already plays a big role in the lives of citizens and investors. You think guaranteed pension disincentivizes performance, disincentivizes accountability? Very quickly, if you can.
No. So no, I absolutely don't think so. I think we are in a war for talent at this point in time, and we need to have more talented people coming into government as well. And I think this move is aimed at incentivizing young people, talented people from, don't leave the country, don't go to the private sector necessarily. Here is an alternative, try for it at least, and come and try and work here. I do think this is about talent attraction.
Exactly the direction in which the political debate goes. Economics of it is something that we always track, and the impact of the unified pension scheme is something that is going to be top of mind now that it is getting implemented and a state like Maharashtra is adopting it even. Thanks very much, Mr. Narayanan, Mitali Nikore, for joining us on this entire debate that has been sparked off over the weekend.